Welcome to Reese Academy. I am Shalonda Reese, your English grammar teacher. Today's lesson is on comma splices. A comma splice happens when a comma is used to separate two independent clauses or two complete sentences, when a semicolon, a period, or a conjunction should be used. And it is the most common syntactical error that I see today. Now let's look at a few examples on the board here. Okay, here you see an incorrect example. The dog ran away, comma, the young boy found the dog. Now, a complete sentence has a subject and a verb. Okay, so therefore you need more than just a comma. The dog ran away, comma, the young boy found the dog. That's the incorrect example. This is an example of a comma splice. A comma separating two independent clauses or two complete sentences. An independent clause is the same thing as a complete sentence. Now let's look at the way to correct this incorrect example. The dog ran away, semicolon, the young boy found the dog. Now let's talk about a semicolon for instance. A semicolon, when you look at it, it looks like the letter J almost, a lowercase j. You have a dot and then you have a comma. Now the thing that's significant about a semicolon is that you don't have to capitalize the first letter after a semicolon. Now with a period, if it was a period, you would have to do that. But with a semicolon, you don't have to capitalize the first letter afterwards. Okay, so it's separated two complete thoughts. Now semicolon is not commonly used. In reading passages, you don't see it very often. You may see it in formal documents, but you don't see it often in literary passages. Okay, another way to correct that is to put a comma and a conjunction. The dog ran away, but the young boy found the dog. Okay, so right here you have a conjunction. And when you use a comma and a conjunction, it's a compound sentence. Okay, so a compound sentence is two complete sentences or two independent clauses separated by a comma and a conjunction. Okay, so you needed a conjunction there. If you want to use a comma, then you have to use a conjunction there. But the young boy found the dog. Okay, so that's the most appropriate conjunction to use for the meaning of this sentence. All right, so we're going to look at two examples on the board, and we're going to see the many different ways to correct the comma splice. All right, here we are. Now let's look at the first example. It says, I went to the store, comma, I bought a shirt. Okay, now, before we continue, like I said, a complete sentence or an independent clause has a subject and a verb. Okay, now, I went to the store, semicolon, I bought a shirt. You can put a semicolon there. You can put I went to the store, semicolon, I bought a shirt. Now, you can just separate the sentences with just a period. I went to the store, period. I bought a shirt. Okay? Now, you can also say I went to the store and bought a shirt. Now I'm going to show you how that works. I went to the store and bought a shirt. Okay. This sentence here, the one that I put a star beside, only has one subject. Okay? But two verbs. I went, bought. Because there's no subject here for this part, it's no longer an independent sentence. So therefore, you don't need a comma. You don't need a semicolon, and you don't need another period. I went to the store and bought a shirt. Versus these two sentences here, I went to the store, period, I bought a shirt. So you can see here the subject is I, and the verb is went bought. Okay, 2 subjects, 2 verbs. But when you have 1 subject and 2 verbs, you don't need to do that. Okay, and you can also say, I went to the store and I bought a shirt. Now, if you want to go back and add the subject I, let me erase this because I'm running out of room. So I'm going to erase this and rewrite it later. I'm going to put, I went to the store, comma, and I bought a shirt. Now, the difference here is that I went back and I added the subject I. And because I added the subject I, that made this an independent clause. Because remember, an independent clause has to have a subject and a verb. And because I went back and added the subject I with the verb bought, I had to go back and add a conjunction and a comma. But because I didn't have the subject here, I didn't need the comma. Okay? So I went to the store and bought a shirt. That's a simple sentence. Whereas I went to the store and I bought a shirt is a compound sentence. Compound means 2. So that means you're combining 2 sentences with a conjunction and a comma. Okay, let's look at that other sentence that I had up here that I had to erase. I had, she is pretty. She's cool. All right, so right here, she is a subject, is the verb. She's the subject, posture, well, is a contraction here, is the verb. She's cool, she is, that's the same thing as is. She is cool, okay? She's pretty, she's cool. All right, this is a comma splice because we have 2 independent clauses, so let's fix it. She is pretty, comma, and she's cool. Okay? So I had to use a conjunction and a comma because I still have the subject here. She is the subject. She's the subject. So when there's 2 subjects and 2 verbs, those are multiple sentences. A comma would not suffice. Either a semicolon, a conjunction and a comma, or a period. She is pretty and she's cool. Now, what if I don't want to put a comma? What if I just want a simple sentence? Then I just write, she is pretty and cool. You see, I took out the subject she, and I took out the verb is. She is pretty and cool. I simplified the sentence. Okay? So, she is pretty and cool. But if I want to keep the other subject and verb, and she's cool, that means I need a comma and a conjunction. Another way to do it is, let's just use a period. She is pretty, comma, she's cool. Now, we usually don't talk in simple sentences like that, back to back. We usually speak like this, she is pretty and cool. Oh, she's pretty and she's cool. We may say that, or she's pretty and cool. She's pretty. She is cool. We don't usually talk like that, but it is correct. It is correct. It's syntactically correct. Okay, and the other way is to just use a semicolon. She is pretty, semicolon, she's cool. Now, remember what I said. I know it's hard to tell with the S's because the S's look the same as uppercase and lowercase. The lowercase is smaller. But with the first letter after a semicolon does not need to be capitalized unless it's a proper noun. And I forgot to mention that earlier, unless it's a proper noun. Okay, so now, comma splices are quite common. Maybe write, and when you write letters or text, you use comma splices. It's very common and almost acceptable. But for me personally, I don't accept them because it's incorrect. It's incorrect grammar. To me, it's lazy writing. Okay? If you have 2 independent clauses and 2 complete thoughts, then make sure you do them justice by separating them with a period, a comma and a conjunction, or a semicolon. Okay? Well, when you come across a comma splice, make sure you mentally make the correction. If you write the comma splice, make sure you go back and make the correction. All right. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.